In the powerful, secretive world of televangelism, there are whispers, deep, low, and dangerous. Whispers that never make it to the pulpit, that never get aired on Daystar or TBN. These whispers circulate in green rooms, in private jets, in hotel lobbies after Christian conferences, in back offices behind locked doors. And for nearly 2 decades, one whisper has refused to die: what really happened between Donnie Swaggart and Paula White? 2 controversial figures, 2 empires built on gospel fire, dramatic testimony, and million-dollar ministries. One from the Deep South, heir to the Jimmy Swaggart dynasty. The other, a fiery blonde from Florida, who rose to spiritual advisor for a sitting US president. On the surface, they had little in common, but behind the cameras, behind the sermons, something was brewing. Something that shook the very foundation of what their followers believed to be holy. When Donnie Swaggart divorced his longtime wife Debbie in the early 2000s, many were shocked. But what followed was even more suspicious. A quiet, barely acknowledged second marriage that ended almost as suddenly as it began. No public details, no fanfare, and no photographs. It was almost as if the second wife never existed. Yet former staff members, ministry assistants, and even close family friends began to hint that there was more to this than a failed rebound marriage. At the same time, Paula White's own marriage to Randy White was deteriorating. Her public appearances were increasing, her brand expanding, and her eyes were fixed on bigger stages. She wasn't just preaching anymore, she was building an empire. Her circle included celebrities, politicians, and yes, fellow ministers like Donnie Swaggart. Insiders say they met during a closed-door Christian leaders retreat in Atlanta in 2002. No cameras, no press. Just an invite-only gathering of the most influential voices in American evangelicalism. That was the first time the whispers began. Several attendees noted that Donnie and Paula had a private conversation that went on for hours. They sat under a gazebo on the retreat property well after midnight. Witnesses say they weren't holding Bibles, weren't praying, they were talking, intimately, intentionally, intensely. Rumors of a growing connection between the two began to swirl. Staffers on both sides started asking questions. Why was Paula suddenly being invited to events in Baton Rouge, just miles from the Swaggart compound? Why was Donnie so quick to end his second marriage and remarry Debbie when just months earlier, he had seemed completely disconnected from her? Who was pulling the strings? One JSM staff member claims to have seen Donnie enter Paula's dressing room during a Louisiana ministry event without knocking. It wasn't a pastoral visit, he said. When he came out, his shirt was untucked. He looked flustered. Paula came out 5 minutes later and wouldn't make eye contact with anyone. These are not the kinds of moments ministries talk about publicly. These are the things they suppress. And Frances Swaggart, she saw the signs too. Known as the Queen Bee of Family Worship Center, Frances was reportedly furious when she learned Paula had been invited to the same conference Donnie was preaching at. One family insider remembers Frances saying, "That woman is dangerous. She's no friend to this ministry." And she wasn't wrong. Because as Paula's influence grew, so did the tension between her and the Swaggarts. Donnie's sermons began to shift subtly. He started using language about powerful women and God-given boldness, themes Paula was known for preaching. A longtime viewer even noted that Donnie's wardrobe and speaking cadence began to mirror Paula's more charismatic style. Was this admiration, mimicry, or something more intimate? Frances confronted Donnie directly, according to 2 former employees. She allegedly told him, "If you bring her into this ministry, you're not just breaking your marriage vows, you're breaking your father's legacy." That conversation, they say, was the turning point. Days later, Donnie filed to annul his second marriage. Within weeks, he reconciled with Debbie. The church was told the reunion was a blessing from the Lord, but was it a forced redemption? Paula, on the other hand, went silent on the matter. She never mentioned Donnie publicly, never attended another Swaggart-affiliated event. But behind the scenes, she was grieving. A former assistant of Paula's claims she found her crying in her office one night in 2005, murmuring, "He did what he had to do, but we both know the truth." Then came the political chapter of Paula's life. In 2016, she emerged as one of the loudest evangelical voices backing Donald Trump. She became his official spiritual advisor, attended inauguration events, and even delivered prayer at the White House. Her brand exploded. Yet some insiders say her heart remained tethered to an old story, one that had never truly been closed. In 2018, Donnie Swaggart gave a sermon that many viewers say raised eyebrows. He said, "Sometimes God calls you into places you didn't want to go. Sometimes the fire you try to quench is the very thing he's trying to light." It wasn't the message, it was the tone, the subtle pain in his voice, the unsaid. Soon after, emails leaked. A disgruntled IT staffer from JSM released redacted emails showing conversations between Donnie and an account linked to Paula White Ministries. The emails weren't explicit, but they were emotional. "You'll always be my North Star," one message read. Another said, "I think of what we could have done together, I still do." No one from JSM confirmed or denied the emails. Donnie stayed silent, so did Paula, but silence is sometimes the loudest confession. To this day, both ministries pretend it never happened. Donnie continues to preach with fervor, now preparing to take full control of the Swaggart empire after Jimmy's death. Paula too marches on, hosting events, writing books, and claiming territory in the spiritual and political realms. But those who know them best say there's still a connection. They say Donnie keeps a photo from that 2002 retreat in his desk. They say Paula once admitted in a private interview that she fell hardest for someone who could never be hers. Was it a full-blown affair? Only they know. Was it an emotional affair? Almost certainly. Was it a missed opportunity for ministry partnership, or a divine intervention that forced them apart? That question is harder to answer. What we do know is this: two powerful people, two wounded hearts, two trajectories forever altered by a bond neither could admit to, but both could never forget. The fallout may never be publicly acknowledged, there may never be confessions from the pulpit, but the whispers continue, and now they're louder than ever. In the end, whether it was a scandal or a suppressed love story, one thing is clear: something happened, and the people deserve the truth. And whether Donnie Swaggart ever admits it or not, the evidence has already preached its own gospel. The gospel of what almost was, what was hidden, and what still haunts them both. The firestorm reignited, Reddit threads exploded. Evangelical YouTubers made hour-long videos decoding timelines, matching emails, syncing sermon quotes. Clips of Donnie's awkward 2019 sermon about fire that burns but doesn't consume were dissected like criminal confessions. Paula's White House prayers were layered over Donnie's Louisiana footage. TikTok creators were crying, churches were buzzing, JSM was silent. But was she wrong? If you bring her back into this ministry, you're not just stepping out of God's will, you're stepping off a cliff. And I won't be the one to catch you. Was that proof? Not legally, but spiritually, emotionally, devastating. And Paula? She moved on, but not unscarred. In 2023, Gabriel allegedly confronted a senior accountant about these financial anomalies. The accountant told him bluntly, "You don't want to go digging there." But Gabriel wasn't satisfied. He began digging into old archives, pulling VHS tapes, archived audio files, internal memos. Until, according to one internal whistleblower, Gabriel found a lost hard drive in the old family worship center tech room. Several longtime JSM employees confirmed Francis held a closed-door meeting with Donnie and two senior board members. According to one source, her voice was sharp, accusatory. She laid out a folder of documents, screenshots, emails, and even hotel invoices, allegedly linking Donnie to a series of suspicious meetings with Paula White staff between 2002 and 2006. Today, Donnie Swaggart stands at the edge of a massive transition. With Jimmy gone, all eyes are on him to carry the torch. But that torch? It flickers. There are shadows behind that flame, shadows that no amount of preaching can erase. Because the truth is out. It's not just rumor anymore. Too many emails, too many stories, too many missing videos, too many people who were there and now ready to talk. What happened next is even more mysterious. A week after Gabriel accessed the drive, it vanished. A memo was sent out saying the archive room was undergoing renovation and all media assets would be digitally reassessed. Was it an affair? Was it an alliance? Was it love never meant to bloom? Francis had her suspicions, and she wasn't about to let history repeat itself. She had already lived through the devastation of Jimmy's public disgrace in the late 80s. The prostitute scandal, the crying on television, the shame. Francis never truly forgave him for the humiliation. She had rebuilt his ministry brick by brick, sermon by sermon. Now her own son was walking into a trap, one she believed was spiritually designed to destroy not just Donnie, but the Swaggart name forever. Inside the family worship center, things began to shift. Francis Swaggart, a woman often described as the true power behind the throne, became noticeably colder, even to her own son. Multiple eyewitnesses recount how Francis's public smiles turned stiffer, how she began monitoring who Donnie spoke to backstage, and how certain guests, particularly powerful women with television ministries, were suddenly uninvited from Swaggart events. And yet, Francis remained cold and unbothered. Many now believe that Donnie fell in love with Paula White, that it wasn't a lustful affair, but a heart connection that threatened everything: his family, his ministry, and his soul. Francis saw it. Debbie felt it. Gabriel is still chasing the ghost of it. Francis reportedly told him. The tension was growing thicker, and into this storm stepped a younger voice, one who had watched the drama unfold from behind stained glass curtains, Gabriel Swaggart. Gabriel, furious, demanded answers. Francis told him to drop it. Donnie told him to focus on building the ministry, not tearing it apart with the past. But Gabriel knew something. He felt it in his gut. His father had crossed a line, and someone, maybe even Francis, had helped bury it. A former personal assistant says Paula once told her during a ministry fast. That footage never aired. It never even made it to the editing team, because someone, and we can guess who, had pulled it before it reached distribution. A former sound technician recalls seeing Donnie standing at the edge of the stage during Paula's message, staring intently, nodding, smiling, in a way he never did with anyone else. It wasn't just admiration, he said. It was like he was seeing himself in her. Like they shared something. After that, things changed dramatically. The devil always tries to tempt God's men with Delilah. But this one, she was just another chapter in a long book of distraction. Every trace of Paula White was quietly erased from JSM event archives. Her name removed from guest lists. Her appearance at the 2004 Louisiana Leadership Summit gone from the website. No pictures, no audio, no video. Even mentions of the conference in newsletters were scrubbed. It was as if the event and her presence had never existed. In 2024, a former ghostwriter shared pages of an unpublished Paula White memoir titled Anointed and Alone. In one chapter, she describes a man of God who loved deeply but couldn't stand in the fire with her. She calls him a prince raised in scandal, and describes a moment where they held hands at a retreat and prayed that God would take away what they both knew they shouldn't feel.